Welcome to the Black Father's Pulse, the podcast where fatherhood meets purpose. I'm Dr. Alvin Thomas, clinical psychologist and professor, here to guide you through the multifaceted journey of Black fatherhood. Please note, the views expressed here are my own and not those of my employer. But get ready to dive into the dynamic world of Black fatherhood, where we celebrate the highs, tackle the lows, and share plenty of laughs along the way. Let's keep the pulse of fatherhood beating strong and vibrant. Brian Heat is a transformational speaker, Amazon best-selling author, educator, and filmmaker who has captivated audiences alongside luminaries like the Colin Powell, Steve Harvey, and Halle Berry. His Maryland-based Strive program, formerly known as Diverse Male Students Initiative Program, has transformed over 15,000 collegiate males in academic excellence, manhood development, and career or entrepreneurship readiness. His latest work, Alaris, The Boy Who Could Fly, explores themes of destiny, courage, and faith, principles that directly connect to his passionate work on redefining healthy Black manhood and intentional fatherhood. What if I told you that the key to being a great father starts with understanding what it means to be a whole man first? Today's conversation is for every father who wants to be more than just present, but to be powerful, purposeful, and transformative.
That's right.
Welcome to the podcast, Brian.
Thank you, Alvin, man. I appreciate you, man. Thank you a lot.
Brian, help us understand, who was Brian Heat and what shaped the man that you are today?
First of all, thank you again for the platform and all the work you've been doing in the space of Black fathers, manhood development. I'll be honest with you, man. I'm a kid from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My mother, I give all glory to God for her passion in the space of education. She has been a career educator her entire life, since retired about 2 or 3 years ago. But she started off in a space of working with the TRIO program or the Upward Bound program. And this was a program that exists currently to this day, even though, our president's trying to dismantle it, at every step he possibly can. But the TRIO program, Upward Bound, takes high school students that are first generation college bound and gets them prepared for that college journey, because they don't have that foundation at home of college goers or college graduates. She designed a program that would help them get ready for the college rigor, the academic rigor, the lifestyle change. And I grew up in that environment. I grew up watching my mother change lives. And I eventually became an educator myself after attending South Carolina State University and majoring in elementary education.
So we don't have very men in elementary education.
Exactly.
And we have even fewer Black men
That's right.
in elementary education. And yet that is the incubator where many of our young men get lost.
That's right.
Where many of our kids get lost, our Black kids get lost. I hear you talk about your mom as this driving force, as this catalyst that got you going in education. And a part of me knows my mom, and I'm excited about the catalyst that your mom was for you. And then there's a part of me that keeps asking, and where is Dad in this story? And
Dad is there. My dad, he is, he's been, he's a mentor, a protector, provider, the leader of our home, or co-leader, right? Because my mom Dukes is right there with him. So
Nice.
my father was more on the side of corporate America.
Okay.
But there were sides of him that, every now and then he would teach a class here and there.
Right.
But in terms of that strong male, Black male leadership in the home, my best friend to this day, when your father is, my dad was born in like 52.
Right.
And for that age of Black man, it wasn't a lot of telling you about manhood. He was living it.
He was living it out.
Right. Now, he also was a great communicator. He would love to pull me into his office and have conversations with me, but it wasn't about, this is how to be a man, son.
Right.
This is really just, he lived it himself. Right. He had a great rapport with my mother. He didn't rule our house with an iron fist. He's very communicative, But again, he was the type where I would walk around the city of Pittsburgh. I remember being a young age,
Right.
and people would just walk up to him and say, "Hey, Dave, I see you got your son with you." And they would just say things about my father, like, "I hope you know who your dad is.
Right.
I hope you know how amazing your father is." And what's crazy is I get that now when my son is with me. Old
Wow.
students, old mentees will stop my son and stop me and, "Oh, Mr. Heat, man, thank you, thank you. Hey, young man, this your son, Mr. Heat, man. Hey, your father's amazing, man. I hope you know what kind of dad you have." So my father was a living example. He was a living example of manhood. He was a living example of leadership, and he actually helped me select my major when I started
Mm.
going to college. It was him and I that sat down and said, "Son, you've always been a natural when it comes to young people. They just have a natural affinity with you. I think you would love actually being in the field of education." So my mother was the inspiration.
Mhm.
My father was the guidance.
It sounds like you did a really good job of combining those two influences in your
Yes,
life,
yes,
both with regard to the corporate culture and the education, and kind of finding your own and
yes.
creating your own space. And so now your son gets to watch that and watch his mom and watch his grandma and his grandpa and decide which pieces he pulls together
That's
to
right.
make his own path in life. That
That's right.
is that is legacy. That is
Absolutely.
beautiful. That
Absolutely.
is
It is.
beautiful.
It is.
So I know you speak and you've spoken to thousands about manhood development
Right.
across the country.
Right.
Um, in 2025, what does healthy Black manhood look like to you? You talked about what your father looked like, and that sounded to me very healthy, the kind of experience that I wished every Black man and every Black child would have. Is that different from what you're seeing in 2025?
The unfortunate part is that the definition itself and the pillars have not changed, but
Hmm.
because of social media, because of so many different media outlets, now our young boys and our young girls are getting so many messages from so many different angles. All of them aren't accurate. All
Hmm.
of them aren't nurturing. Some of
Hmm.
them can be very toxic. And so I see that, I wasn't, when you're born in the 80s and the 90s, you
Right.
didn't have as many media outlets trying to get your
Ah.
attention and tell you this and tell you that. And so for me, to answer your original question,
Mhm.
I do believe that positive male masculinity starts with self identity.
Hmm.
Really, really being able to say, "I know who I am." The world is trying so hard to tell you who you should be.
Mhm.
This persona, this
Mhm.
this entertainer, this lane, this disposition, this umbrella you need to fit under. But
Mhm.
you yourself, as a man, as a young man, you need to think about, who am I when no one's looking?
Hmm.
What are my points of my values, my beliefs, my
Mm.
characteristics? What do I stand for? Right. And I always, when I travel across the country, even in my program at the community college, when I first meet the guys, we're really talking about self belief.
Mhm.
We're
Mhm.
talking about self love and self identity. These
Mhm.
being the trifecting cores at the bottom of that we can build from.
And that to me sounds like integrity.
Yes,
That you
absolutely.
are who you are no matter who is watching you, who is judging.
That's
You
right.
know who you are and you stick to that.
Right.
So I suspect that, like you just said, you're having these conversations with these young men and you're imparting these pearls of wisdom to them. Your diverse male student initiatives program,
Yes.
I kept tripping over this and thinking to myself, oh, he's impacted 1,000. Oh, no, he's impacted 1,500. That is really good. And it did two things for me when I heard the real number. The real number is 15,000. That's
That's right.
with three zeros.
That's right.
It did this. One, that I was willing to be excited about 1,000
Right.
and willing to be excited about 1,500.
That's right.
And it tells me one, is it that I am expecting so little from hard work that I am okay with just 1,000
Right.
and not willing to push beyond? Is it that the challenges feel so insurmountable that if we could just get five, if we could just get 10, Wow, we got 1,000. That is really good. And then to hear 15,000 really, really blows my mind. What else are you teaching these 15,000 young men and more to come down the road? Or what didn't you teach them?
So let me give you the backstory. So in my journey as an educator, I started off again, graduating from South Carolina State University. I came out with an education degree, my bachelor's in K through 8. And so, probably from 1998 to about 2008, 2009, I was in the K through 12 space in the DC area. So, I used to be in Prince George's County as a public school teacher. Then I moved to the charter school system in DC. And I've done everything from principal to vice principal to dean of students to classroom teacher, basketball coach, mentor, anything you could do in the space of education, K through 12, I did.
Mhm,
But in 2008, 2009, I was looking for another opportunity. I
mhm,
wanted something different. And so fortunately, I do believe that God opens doors when those doors are for you and
mhm,
for you in the moment. And
mhm,
so there was a young lady that my mother knew from back in the day that had become the president of Prince George's Community College. And her name was Dr. Charlene Dukes.
mhm,
And the summer of 2008, 2009, I do believe, my mother and father said, Brian, you should reach out to Dr. Dukes and see if she has any opportunities at the college level. You've done K through 12. You say you want something different. So I went to Dr. Dukes. And what's interesting, Alvin, is that when I sat down with her,
mhm,
obviously she knew me very well from when I was a child. And after we caught up, she said, Brian, it's so coincidental you're coming to talk to me because I have an idea for a very aggressive male
mhm,
mentoring program. It's never been on this campus ever. And we want to start something like that. And I feel like you'd be a great fit. What do you think? And
mhm,
that's where I had goosebumps, right?
mhm.
That's where I had goosebumps because, again, I had never worked in higher education. I had
Right.
always been in the K through 12 space. Fast forwarding, we created a program called DMSI,
Mhm,
Diverse Male Student Initiatives. And the ultimate goal of that program was a college retention or college persistence program, where
mm,
that goal of is to make sure the students not only graduate, but we make sure they're coming back semester after semester. And whatever we
mm,
need to do from workshops, tutoring, cultural trips, college tours, we wanted to make sure we had wraparound services that impacted their academic rigor,
mhm,
their motivation, their internal emotional resilience, just
mhm,
getting them to feel like they were worthy of being in college, to give them a sense of
hmm.
direction while they were in college, and then move them on to their 4 year institution. And step by step, year after year, semester by semester, the program just began to grow. Now, what's kind of cool is that about 5 years ago, that'd be about 2020, 2019, right before the pandemic, the program's data was so amazing
Mhm,
that an opportunity was presented to us that we went after a major grant that we
mm.
got for $3.7 million. And
Wow.
once we got that money, not only were we able to bolster up our program, there was a sister program called Women of Wisdom,
Exactly. Yep.
and we gave them the other half. So we both split the money and
Mhm,
we used it over the last 5 years to build the program up and expand it. And so, it's been a legacy journey for me. But along the way, at least with my program, it's been about 15,000 students impacted. And my sister, Dr. Pear, can speak to those relatively same numbers in her time frame as well.
Wow, that's impressive. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing and the lives and families that you're changing. So I taught elementary school, middle school, high school, the whole gamut, and
Nice.
now higher ed. What was your favorite age group to teach? The favorite grade to teach, and why?
I would honestly say my favorite age would be this age, the college
Mm,
age.
okay,
I can be, I have a little bit of Joe Clark in me, right? The little
okay,
bit that lean on me, right?
right, right,
That energy is best received by those that 17, 18, 19. I
right,
loved my time in elementary. I
right.
thought, I don't think I would be here and doing the work I do if it was not for my time in K through
Yeah,
12. But the age that I connect to most naturally, I don't have to turn down my energy.
right,
I don't have
right.
to turn down my intensity is for that college group. So that would be my favorite age group. Yeah.
I like the fact that you could look back and appreciate the impact that what happens at the younger ages,
Right.
what that impact looks like when you get to these old ages, pre-college and a few years before that as well.
But I'll even go a little
Um,
bit further. What I realize in the
mhm,
higher education profession, most folks don't have K through 12 background that work in the college space.
yeah.
So the fact that I was able to cut my teeth in the trenches, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade, a little bit of high school,
Mhm,
before I made it to higher education, it gave me a very unique background that made me very relatable. And it made this work relatively easy in terms of student engagement because I
mhm.
came from that cloth. And so all praise due to God that I started where I started because
Right.
it added to the flavor of who I am now.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about what's happening culturally.
Yes,
Social media glorifies certain versions of masculinity,
that's
the
right.
providers, the protectors,
That's
the
right.
alphas. Where is that line? You mentioned that word toxic, and we can have a whole conversation about what is toxic masculinity and whether toxic masculinity exists, or
Right.
if that is the right nomenclature, if
Right.
that is the right language to be to be using for this particular phenomenon.
Right.
But where does the line exist between strength and toxicity?
Wow. That's a powerful question. Where does the line exist between strength and toxicity? To
I
me,
tell you, we ask difficult questions here. I tell you,
but I love it. I love it. But let's give some definition before
right?
we do the comparison.
Yeah.
Toxicity to me, no matter what gender it's used for or how it's
Hmm.
used, toxicity is anything that takes away from,
Hmm.
anything that misnames,
Hmm.
anything that tarnishes, anything that pulls from your character, anything that shines a negative light on the subject matter ends
Hmm.
up being something what I call toxic,
Hmm.
right? And so if there are attributes of a man that pull away from other people, that diminish people that interact with him, that's what toxic masculinity looks like. So let's take misogynistic behavior.
Hmm.
Misogynistic behavior would be considered toxic masculinity because misogynistic behavior says I am a man, and simply because my gender of being a male, that puts the female or woman gender beneath me.
Right.
And I speak to her from a standpoint of you're less than I am, your value is less, your voice is less,
Hmm.
everything about you is less, and I'm going to dictate down, I'm going to speak down, I'm going to diminish your value. That's toxic because it's taking away from her persona, it's taking away from her as a woman. So that's a great example of toxic
Hmm.
masculinity is misogyny. But
Right.
this is the tricky part, this world, we have a patriarchal society,
Right.
and if you go far enough back, misogynistic behaviors were interwoven in manhood
Yep.
in the 40s, the 50s, the
Yep.
60s, the 70s, and it's almost recently where you start to see this massive change that women are expecting a change, they're
Mhm.
demanding change, and you have positive men and more what I would call progressive minded men that no
Mhm.
longer attach themselves to that old ideology of what manhood looks like. Does that make sense? And so
Yeah.
for me, when you juxtapose manhood or strength from toxic, it's anything about the manhood persona that would tear down the person they're interacting with or the community in which they engage. If you're tearing down, misrepresenting, tarnishing, and that's through the space of manhood, that would be considered that toxic
Toxic.
masculinity.
Yeah. And to me, that sounds like a misappropriation, a misuse of masculinity.
That's right.
If masculinity comes with strength
That's right.
and verve and power and competition and conquest, that should be used in the best interest of community,
That's
of
right.
family, not in the best interest of the individual,
Right.
and definitely not in the way of destroying, undermining, belittling, devaluing the other.
I heard a
And I
good
think,
quote
yep,
years
go
ago. I
ahead.
think we talked about this offline when I was a part of
Mhm,
the Manhood tour with Hassani Pettiford, Dondre Whitfield, and
mhm,
Halle Berry was with us for a couple years. One of my guys, I think it was Dondre, it might have been Hassani, but the comment was when a man walks in the
mhm.
room should improve. Just as
Mm.
soon as he walks in, the room should improve,
Hmm.
right? When you come in the room, I remember doing speaking engagements up until recently. I'm
Right.
in my own engagements as the talent. I'm moving tables, I'm
Hmm.
putting chairs up, and I'm
Mm.
the actual speaker. But
Right.
I'm the
Right.
one that when I walk in the room, my natural tendency is not to sit back and watch the work get done. I'm rolling my sleeves up and I'm getting to it, right? Because that's my natural, that a big part of manhood is service, that when you walk in a room, how can you serve in any capacity? When I walk in my parents' house, almost at age 50, how can
Hmm.
I serve? I put my son in a son's place. I'm 50 years old. Mom, how can I help you?
Help
Dad,
you.
what do you need? How can I be of service? So I thought that was a great quote. When a man walks in a room, the room improves.
Improves. Mm. So I heard somebody say once that, and I can't remember where I heard it, that many men parent from their father wound. Either they're
Mm,
overcorrecting or they're
mm,
repeating patterns.
mm.
So there's some father wound that every man is healing from and parenting from. And he's either overcorrecting to avoid repeating that behavior, or he is actually engaged in repeating the behavior. How do we break that cycle of fathering from a parent wound?
So I'll give you an example. And my
Mhm.
father has heard this before, so it would not be new. My father was born in about 1952. My father is relatively about 74, 75 years old. And I don't believe in my lifetime I've ever heard my father say, "Son, I love you."
Mm,
I've
mhm.
never heard that. Now, let me give you some context because I'm
Right.
not going to misrepresent my brother, right?
Yeah.
He has demonstrated it every single day of his life without question.
Yeah.
But the type of emotional restrictions, that age group, that generation, that stoic, right? Black man born in the 50s. Think about it, Dr. King got
Mhm.
killed in 68. You're talking about a man who lived through those
Through that.
times,
Right.
right? That's not the lovey dovey, let me tell you how much I love you. I don't even
Mhm.
think my
Mhm.
father's ever given me a full two-handed hug.
Mhm.
I think it's been the
Right. Right. Right.
right. But guess what? Again, let me be clear. He has demonstrated and continues to demonstrate his love for me every day since I've known him. Again, best friend, greatest man I've ever known is my father. So, how does that translate to my son?
Mhm.
I wanted to make sure that I was an evolved version of my father where I could be, right?
Mm.
Because a lot of who I am is him.
Right.
But where he was not emotionally available in some spaces, I tell my son 7 times a day, I love you, son.
Right.
I love you, son. And he's able to tell me, I love you, dad. So when you're
Mm.
talking about some people parent through the wound and it transfers over, that wound continues.
Mhm.
Some people recognize the wound, heal it, and move the
Mhm.
healing forward.
Yeah.
I was able to take that little small piece and
Mhm.
take that as I'm going to make sure, from an emotional standpoint, my son knows it's okay for a man to say, I love you. I do love you. And you can say it
Mhm.
back without hesitation.
Yeah. That is powerful. That is powerful. I think of my own experiences, and my father, quite like your father, grew up in the same general times and grew up without his father.
That's
This
right.
is pretty well known. So for him, even the idea of having an archetype for fatherhood, he was his own archetype.
Right.
He watched other people do it,
Right.
and he tried and failed many times and kept trying. And for me, his ultimate act of love was that he kept trying.
That's right.
Even when he was feeling miserably sometimes, he kept coming back to this thing again and again because he recognized the necessity of a father in the lives of his children. And the first time my father hugged me, it was probably the most awkward moment for both of us. I came off my graduation stage, and my all of my father's teeth were out because he was just so proud to see me cross the stage and
That's right.
and get that PhD. And he just reached over. I'd never seen my father so excited, so happy. Reached over, smiling, happy, and laughing, and hugged me. And I hugged him, and I'm hugging him, and thinking to myself, "What? What's going on here? Like what? What?" And then we let go, and then that was it. Um, And I think to myself what it looks like to make sure that I don't repeat those things
That's right.
that my father has tried to heal from, and that I continue doing the healing for myself. And like you said, pass on that legacy of healing onto my nieces and my nephews and others. And of course, when I eventually have kids, have those same experiences without perpetuating that father wound. So in your program, the Diverse Male Student Initiatives program, you teach academic excellence, you teach manhood development, you
Yes.
teach career readiness. That's a lot. But if you were to add a fatherhood readiness pillar,
Yes.
what would young men need to master to be able to say that they have emerged positively from this fatherhood readiness pillar?
So you and I again, we talked offline in preparation for
Right.
getting ready for today, and I told you that one of the things that I picked up along the way is that there's no way possible to be a good father if you're
Mhm.
not first a good man.
Exactly.
It has to start with that. And one of the key elements, I'll keep it short,
Mhm.
is that can you as a man get to a space that you know who you are,
Mm.
you have a sense of direction,
Mhm.
you have a sense of your creator, which is going to be a part of your faith and your belief system. We're not talking about religion, just that vertical connection to something greater than you. So again, your self-identity, self-direction, some level of spiritual connection.
Mhm.
Fast forwarding, can you get yourself to a space where you can be self-sufficient? That
Mm.
you yourself have a means of earning income. You
Mhm.
yourself know how to take care of your body. That goes from your hygiene to your surroundings to the business of bill paying to
Mhm.
just making sure you know how to navigate your life. Does that make sense? And again,
Yeah.
this is it's in
Yeah.
order: self identity, your spiritual connection, your sense of direction, but then that level of independence. Can you take care of this vessel? Can you
Mhm.
take care of your mind, body, and spirit first? Because a father is doing nothing more than extend. Watch this. He's doing
Mhm.
nothing more than extending his self care out to care for others. So if you can't care for
For
self,
yourself, you can't.
mind, body, and spirit, if you can't care for your vessel, if you can't care for your body, your sense of direction, your spirituality, your self-talk, your resilience, if you
Mhm.
can't do that, it's going to be hard to extend it to a wife or
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
children. So I always start with you cannot be a good father until you're a good man. And good man starts with self identity, self direction, a sense of faith, and then how you handle mind, body, and spirit, self care, that then eventually would extend to other people.
Mm. So the man, as the priest of the home,
Yes.
cannot truly be a priest if that relationship, if that vertical relationship is not intact. Whatever he's passing on is broken to begin with. So he's
I'll give you an
passing on
example. When my
brokenness.
son we used to go to early age, he went to a private school.
Right.
And we're not talking about religion as much as just
Right.
trying to instill that level of vertical connection. I told
Right.
my son, if anything I want to place into your spirit prior to you leaving my home and going off into the world for college, is I want you to have a God presence. I
Mhm.
want you to have a sense of spiritual grounding. Whatever religion you choose to follow is up to you, but that grounding is going to be there. And I remember us doing prayers before he would go to bed. And he
Mhm.
said, Daddy, can come do our prayers.
Mhm.
And he initially would just recite the prayers
Mhm.
he was hearing at school.
Right.
And I stopped him one day and I said, Son, tell me what those prayers mean.
Right.
And he looked at me and said, Daddy, I don't know. And
Mm.
I said, See, that's a problem, son. I said, because just saying prayers for prayer's sake has no power.
Right.
I want you to speak to God as if you're speaking to me.
Me.
I
Yep.
want you to speak as if God is your best friend and be thankful. We always talk
Mhm.
about prayers starting with gratitude and
Mhm.
just start about talking about how thankful you are for all
Mhm.
your existing. So he would say, Thank you for my daddy. Thank you for my mommy. Thank you for
Mhm.
my room. Thank you for my toys. Right? He
Mhm.
would just start very elementary, but it formed this relationship that now he has his own God presence. But guess what? To your point, that had to come from me.
Yes.
That had to come that I have a vertical connection that I've established that if I didn't have that first, how could I instill that in him as a man to then have his God presence?
Fathers are the fire bringer. But what fire can you bring if all you have are cold coals,
You can't teach what you're
unignited?
not.
You can't
I
teach
tell
what you
teachers,
don't know.
I train teachers across the country. I'm talking about from superintendents down to assistants in the classroom. I tell all of them, you can't teach what you're not,
No.
and
Yep.
you can't transform what you don't love.
Yep.
And that's a bar. That's a
That
bar.
second part.
Right.
That second part.
Right.
Say,
You
say
can't
that again.
you
Say
can't
that second part
you
again.
can't transform what you don't love.
Oh.
So when I've gone into
Oh.
teaching sessions and I've started there, if you don't love children, you
Don't.
need to quit. You need to remove yourself from this profession today because you're going to be more of a hindrance than
Yep.
a help. And so again, if I don't love my son, I can't be a part of his transformation,
Yep.
his rearing.
Yep.
And if I don't have it in me, I can't give it to him. So that's why everything starts with me as a man. Fatherhood is a lifetime journey,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Now you can become an improved father once you have children because now it's the nuances, it's the baby
Right.
diapers and
Right.
all the little nuances and skills. But in terms of becoming the person, that happens all the years leading up to you having that child. Is how have you worked on knowledge of self, who you are, and all the things we talked about.
So I'm going to get into a little bit of good trouble.
Okay.
You can't teach black children if you don't love black children or
No,
black people.
I agree.
You can't.
I agree.
You can be the teacher in the classroom,
Yes.
but you ain't teaching nobody.
Right.
You're not transforming any lives,
Right.
at least not in the way that it should be transformed, because it doesn't start from love.
Right.
It doesn't start from connection.
Right.
And anything that doesn't start from love leads to death.
Well,
If it's not love, it's death. Forget about hate and all of that.
right.
Those are just euphemisms
Right.
to the actual thing.
Right.
It's death. Love gives life. Everything that is not love is therefore death.
Let me sprinkle this on there.
Talk
The
to me.
other part, and this comes down to indoctrination,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're talking about the K through 12 system, if you're talking about U.S. education, there's a reason why if you don't, to your point, if you don't know black people, if
Oof.
you don't know who they are, what they've been through, everything you're teaching is coming through an indoctrinated lens.
Yep.
Does that make sense? Because true, if you break down education, the Latin means to pull from within and
Mm.
allow them to come out from within.
Mm.
But if you're indoctrinating them, you're taking external information and placing it in them so they can work and move and think a certain
Yeah.
way to fit within the system.
Yeah.
If you love your people, you would be able to teach them beyond indoctrination.
Yeah.
You would give them a sense of self-worth, self-knowing, and a spirit of discernment to see through the BS. Give you an example. Years ago at the elementary level, I think about fourth grade, fifth grade, may have been a little bit older. I think it may have been middle school. I'm not sure. But I remember I tried something, and I'm not anti-American. Let's keep it up front. I'm not anti-American, but I tried something that there was an American flag in my classroom, and I removed it and put it on my desk. And we stopped
Brian is about to get me canceled. Go ahead, Brian. You're about to get me canceled.
and I put it on my table, and it was again purposeful and temporary. And we stopped doing the Pledge of Allegiance. We would stand, but I would not make them move forward. It went on for about 2 or 3 days. That's it. And one of the administrators came through and said, "Brian, what's going on?" I said, "I would like to teach the Pledge of Allegiance."
Mm-hmm.
And I think the fact that we have them recite it without them knowing it,
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now I should be able to do that. And you know what my administrator told me? He said, "No, you are not allowed to teach the Pledge of Allegiance. Brian, I know you. You're going to give context. You're going to reveal truths that
As
you and
if
I,
that
he was
is
a black man.
wrong.
He was a black man, but he
Right.
knew it was going to have a level of truth that could be considered controversial. And we
Yeah.
had a conversation. I put the flag up and we continued, but this was the type of commitment I brought to the
Right.
profession because I've always taught in Black communities.
Right.
I've always taught my own. So whatever the curriculum said, I knew I had to add to that curriculum.
Right.
I had to add and sprinkle some truth because you know
Mm.
what I'm saying? We had to make sure what they were being taught. But why do I say all this? I say this to say, if you don't love your children, if you don't love the people you're teaching, you're not going to go to those extents.
Yeah.
You're going
Yeah.
to teach the curriculum and keep moving forward. Again, I
Yeah.
love my country, number one, right? But at the same time, it must be stated and really made clear the travesties we've experienced in this country, and so that our beautiful brown babies walk around with their eyes wide open and they can walk in knowing their history, their present, and where they need and should be going.
I love this because that feels like a good segue to your book,
Yeah.
Alaris, the Boy Who Could Fly.
Yes.
You are attempting to give, at least in this story and in other stories, but this
Yes.
specific story about wanting to teach the Pledge of Allegiance, you were attempting to give wings
Yes.
to your students.
Yes.
It's one thing to give them worms that will fill their stomachs for a little bit. It's another thing to give them wings to be able to go off and find
That's
the
right.
knowledge that they need to find.
That's
Tell
right.
us a little bit about Alaris, the boy who could fly. Why this story? Why now? What personal experiences or observations inspired this book for you?
So I'm going to give glory to God that this was a gift. I
Mhm,
do believe from a higher power. Years ago, when I first started getting prepared for the journey of becoming a public speaker,
mhm,
I was an administrator at a charter school in DC, and I had a good friend of mine who owned his own production company, and he knew that I had a desire to speak. He said, "Brian, why don't you assemble about 20 or 30 people in your multi-purpose room in the school, and I'll come through with my camera and my team, and we'll film you so you can start to get some game film, right, on your body language, how you talk, how you speak, and how you move." So I was excited. I said, "Yes, thank you, man. Thank you for that." And I went home, Alvin, and I tried to create some
mm,
things that I would talk about. And everything came out completely terrible. I
mm.
thought it was really, really like super corny. It just was
Right,
not
right, yep,
indicative of who I was. It was like, it just was very predictable and it didn't have
right.
anything into it. Then all of a sudden I prayed for a little while and I remember coming back to my journal, maybe the next day or the day after. And this story had formulated in my mind about a young man named Alaris.
Mm.
Now, the reason why I say this was God, Alvin, is because the story came to me almost completely finished, beginning,
Wow.
middle, and end.
Right.
It wasn't the idea of a story, it literally was the bones of the entire
Right.
story. And
Hmm.
so I worked on a little bit and I got it ready enough at the time to deliver it at that engagement. And I had a good friend of mine who played the acoustic guitar, and he
Mhm.
played the guitar as I recited this story, and it blew the crowd away. I
Hmm.
mean, I mean, some folks were crying.
Mm.
Some folks were like, "Oh my God, Brian, we didn't know you were a storyteller." And I said,
Mm.
I wasn't.
I'm not a storyteller.
I wasn't, right? And so I began to tinker on it and do
Right.
more and place more time and effort into it. And I delivered it live about 4 or 5 more times as a part of different multimedia speaking experiences I was doing. I remember doing it once. I had an Alvin Ailey dancer that was dancing as
Mm.
I was telling the story. The DJ had sound effects and all this cool stuff. And again, the crowd got emotional, and I just realized I had something. As I began to take a step back from what I had, I realized there was a greater significance.
Mm.
It was a story of a black boy.
Mhm,
It
mhm,
was a story of a black boy facing resilience. It
mm.
was a story of a black boy coming from some place where he wasn't fully supported, where the hope and the inspiration was not as great, but he felt a calling on his life. And I
Mhm.
felt like that was a microcosm from what a lot of young black boys go through. They may come from these impoverished communities or homes that they're not feeling nurtured and loved, but there's a calling deep inside of them to do something amazing. One of the main characters besides Alaris is an angel named Dara. So I
Right.
had to have that woman archetype,
Mhm,
that
mhm.
strong, intuitive, divine goddess persona that would
Right.
be his guide. And if you are a good man who can see or sisters the way you should. Sisters are that for us. When you meet a good woman, she's going to be someone to help you with her spirit of discernment, her intuition, her words of wisdom, her love, her nurturing. And so I wanted to make sure that was present in the book by being the person he met to encourage him
Mm,
along his journey. So again, this was nothing more and is nothing more than the story of a young black boy with a calling on his spirit to do something amazing despite disbelief, maybe a lack of faith initially,
mhm,
and all the
mhm.
challenges he may face along the way towards what he's trying to manifest.
So Alaris gets this support from Dara and
Yes,
from others.
yes,
What does it mean? Because of course this book is deeply emotional
yes,
and but deeply metaphorical.
yes.
What does it mean to teach our sons to fly in a world that wants to clip their wings?
It really comes down to self belief.
Mm.
I have a quote that I tell my audiences: "You can only attract what you believe you're worthy of possessing."
Let's sit on that for a little bit.
Okay,
You can only attract,
what you believe you're worthy of possessing.
huh? Wow.
Powerful,
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah.
I remember when I was first started as a speaker, maybe about 2011. And I was imagining, based upon my style of speaking, what would be my dream engagement, or what kind of engagements. And one of it was professional sports. That
Hmm.
I knew my energy, my style, my physical presence would be best received in an NBA locker room or an
Mm.
NFL locker room or some high performance athletic environment. So
Right.
for years later, for me to be the featured speaker for 2 years in a row for the Miami Dolphins rookie success program, I had to believe in me 10 to 15 years ago. I had to see that I was worthy to walk in that multi-million-dollar complex in Hollywood, Florida, into their training facility and get in front of world-class athletes. But if I would not have believed in me, there's no way my frequency would have attracted the series of events that led me to get there.
Mm.
Alaris is the whole thing is really based upon teaching our black boys the power of belief, which then lends itself to alignment. But
Right.
if you believe in who you are, you will begin to put yourself in alignment with what God has for you. And you never know how supernatural, how
Mm.
amazing, how incredible, how just beyond your wildest imagination He has for you. But if you don't believe in self, your frequency will never lend itself to alignment to unlock God's blessings for your life.
So how does an individual go from not believing? So in Alaris's case,
Yes.
go from not believing, and it sounds easy, believe in yourself and go after the things that you want. How does a person go from not believing to believing? How do you even believe?
The first thing, it's so funny because if you think about my journey and what I do, everything is connected. So the
Mhm.
work I did as an educator, from the elementary to the middle to the high to the college. Think about what I told you. Where do we start with? Self belief,
Yeah.
right? But ultimately, we would hope that it comes from the home.
Mhm.
We hope that someone, I had the benefit of having two parents that poured
Right.
into me and told me, you can do anything you desire to do. We believe you have the ability. Now they weren't unrealistic. I
Right.
remember I used to hoop. I didn't show a lot of inclination to take it to the NBA, right?
Right.
So they weren't telling me, son, just because you love basketball doesn't mean you're going to be an
Right.
NBA guy. It was
Right.
not a part of my natural, my gifting, right? So number one, you need to be surrounded by, I'll back up. You need to be surrounded by a nurturing environment that
Mhm.
makes you feel worthy of love.
Mhm.
If you love yourself, I'm gonna tell you what you become addicted to. If you love you, you love the possibility of you,
Mm. Mhm.
right? If you love you, you then become in love with the possibility of everything you could become. Now, once
Right.
you become in love with the possibility, you become just addictive of anything that can help you.
Become
If
that.
this is going to help me grow, now
Yeah.
I want to be mentored. I
Yeah.
want to receive this information, this experience, this exposure, because I believe in me. I believe in my possibility. This becomes a problem for a lot of Black boys. They're not nurtured by love. They
Hmm.
may be low, they're being nurtured by abandonment. They're being nurtured by self hate, violence in their community. So then it makes them very tough and very, their ears blocked to one, they don't love themselves because love wasn't placed in them.
Hmm.
So now, without love being placed in them, they see no possibility for themselves. And if you see no possibility, why would you be open to being mentored and receiving information and exposure? Because you can't see past the tip of your nose. And so again, in Alaris, for him, it became the calling, right? And I'll give you a quick little bar.
Hmm.
I've always told audiences, your calling is not just internal. Your calling is another dimension has already experienced that version of you and it's calling out to you.
Mm.
So right now, like even how you got on this podcast and specifically for fathers, there was a time, Alvin, if you and I sat and talked long enough, that something was yearning inside of you to create a media platform, but in another dimension, it already existed. That
Mm.
wave, that frequency, all you did is when you heard it,
Tap
you
into it.
you aligned yourself with it. And then
Hmm.
look around, it became your reality. Same thing in terms of our Black boys. Sometimes we can't see because we weren't given, the love wasn't placed inside of us. So the possibility wasn't placed inside of us. So the sense of direction was not attractive to us. It
Hmm.
became about survival. And when all you do is survive, it's hard to thrive.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Is this making
I
sense?
it's making sense. I think that at its simplest form, belief is action.
Yes.
You can't act if you don't believe.
Yes.
And sometimes you have to act even if you have not believed yet.
I say fearlessness is not being afraid, it's
Mhm.
being afraid and doing it anyway.
And doing it anyway. Yeah.
That's fearlessness.
Yeah.
But if you don't believe, I'm not going to move forward.
Yeah.
One time, as an adult male, probably about 10 years ago, I had a very powerful conversation with my mother and father about leaders and extraordinary people. And my father took the standpoint that everyone's not extraordinary.
Mhm.
He said, son, I don't believe that. He said, son, some people are extraordinary and they
Mhm.
have these amazing gifts, and some people just aren't born with those talents. And I went back and forth with him.
Mhm.
And I said, Mom, have you ever met someone extraordinary? And she got very quiet, Alvin. And she said, I have. Now, remember, my mother's an educator. So
Mhm.
I was prepared to have her tell me anyone, a teacher, a
Right.
professor, a student. She looked at me and said, You.
You. Yep.
Now,
Yep.
this is what's powerful, Alvin. She didn't say it from a mother
Right. Right.
because you're my son. She took a pause and reflected and said, Brian, the way you think, the way you create, the things you've gone after, the things you've been able to do, son, far has far exceeded. And again, her bar was high,
Right.
but it became one of those things where it just was extraordinary to her.
Mhm.
But watch this. One of the greatest things that a young man can do on his journey to becoming himself is the universe is always trying to get your attention. And you're going to have mentors and strangers and people and circumstances that will speak over your life along your journey. What you need to do is believe it. I had people at a young age say, Hey, my mother's name is Lynn. Hey, Lynn, you got something special in that Brian.
Mhm.
There's something different about Brian. And when I would hear it, I internalized it, not through an ego. I didn't
Mhm.
walk around like I'm not. I took it as, okay, I am smart. When my son was young, Alvin, I gave him a nickname, Fly Genius.
Mm.
Fly Genius. Because so often we as Black males struggle with being like fashionable and kind of like popular
Right.
versus being smart.
Smart.
And I
Yep.
said, son, you
Yep.
can be both.
You
Your
can be
father
both of
is.
those.
You
Yeah.
can embrace being, just creative and unique and authentic and fly and just being your authentic self. But you also can be smart and brilliant and be bold with it. And if you combine them together, that's that fly genius. I spoke that over his life so that he could start to manifest that belief through everything else. Does that
Mm.
make sense?
Makes sense.
A
Makes
lot of
sense.
our boys aren't spoken to like that. We're not reminded of that at a young age, and it begins to affect the journey and trajectory because they weren't given those right tools and that sunlight and that good water early
Mm.
to help them understand their worth, the trajectory that God has for them.
And that is the work of a mature man. That is the work of a father, whether that be a biological father or a social father, an uncle, a coach, or whoever. So I'm going to put us into our lightning round. I'm going to give you 5 questions and
Sure.
no need to give an explanation, just a really quick 30 to 45-second response for each of them. First question: one piece of advice that that you would give to a man who just found out that he's about to become a father.
Congratulations. Um, but I would also say go to prayer. Go into prayer.
Go to
That's
prayer.
the first thing that I would do. I think I did that. It's been too long
Mhm.
now, but because it's going to hit you, right? It's going to
Right.
hit you. I think you know most people would tell you that they weren't 100% prepared.
Mhm.
Obviously, when they had their first child, but go to prayer and ask for strength. Go to prayer,
Second,
ask for strength, ask for guidance for the journey ahead. That you
right.
do the best job that you can in shaping this life.
Second question. Biggest mistake you see fathers making today?
Lack of presence
Mm. The
because they're
word
spending
presence
too
comes
much
again.
time maybe on presence,
Mm.
coming
Mm.
around with the Jordans, the gifts,
Right, right.
that that the outings, right? That's
Hmm.
cool. But in terms of your presence, right? One thing I love about taking my son to school is the 45-minute drive
Yes.
and the
Yes.
conversation that we're able to have. These
Yes.
aren't lectures, these are
Right.
conversations, right?
Yeah.
And so I would say presence is because so often fathers are trying to provide and they're
Right.
paying bills and
Right.
businesses and runnings. I'm guilty of that. That I'm so locked in. Don't forget your number one mentee is sitting right there,
Yeah.
right? And so I would say presence.
Next question. What's one thing you do daily that makes you a better man and father?
I don't want to sound like a broken record, brother, but my prayer
Prayer.
life and my
Yes.
and my meditation
Yeah.
in the morning, because it's in a world of social media and all these electronic devices. Some of us wake up in the morning, and the first thing we grab is our phone,
Yeah.
and we're looking at daily news feeds and
Yeah.
what the administration has done, and it begins
Yeah.
to clog your
Yeah.
mind that you had no centering, no sense of
Mhm.
stillness or intention for your day. But when I start with prayer, and then I have my mantra that I wrote. I was in China during the month of December. And while I
Mhm.
was in China and I had some downtime, I wrote a really nice mantra for 2026 that I recite right after
Mhm.
my prayer in the meditative space. So I would say prayer and meditation is one of the most consistent things I've adopted recently that
Mhm.
would give me some strength and foundation for my manhood, my adulthood, and my fatherhood.
Thank you so much for that. And final question: if you could speak to every Black father in America right now, and we also have fathers who are listening from outside of the U.S., the U.K., and other places, what would you say to them?
I love you is the first thing I would say to them.
Mm.
You're valuable beyond your check.
Hmm.
Um, let your character, your value, and your beliefs lead you. And you never know just the impact you will have on your child if you do that. Right? If you really let your God presence, your values, your character, and your belief be the filter on how you raise your children, and be there for them and with them as much as you can, you don't understand the impact that shaping will have on them and then how they interact with the rest of the world.
And before we go, where can people find Alaris? How can people connect to you and tap into your work?
So very good. Right now, you can check out our website just went up, Alaris Haradu. That's Alaris Haradu, HARADU.com. Have a great trailer. We got some cool things happening at the website. We'll be adding some more things to it. You can also buy the book at Amazon. It is on there. Brian Heat, the Alaris, the boy who could fly. And just as I told you before, we're also working on the trailer for the prequel the
Mm.
Falconeer. And we're really excited about that this year. We're going to be creating that and working on pre-production all the year of 2026, hopefully releasing at the top of 2026 going into 27. And we're very excited about that. But Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and also, again, checking out the website, larshardu.com.
Thank you so much, Brian. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Black Fathers Pulse podcast, please remember to rate and review the podcast. Share with a father who needs to hear this. Check out Alaris, the boy who could fly, and follow Brian Heat on social media. Find us all on social media, Brian Heat, and of course, the Black Fathers Pulse podcast. Brothers, remember, true fatherhood is not about dominance, it's about development.
That's
And
right.
the ultimate test of that development, how we father the next generation.
That's right.
Thank you so much, Brian, for joining us today.
All right.
You've been listening to the Black Fathers Pulse. I'm your host, Dr. Alvin Thomas. I'm a clinical psychologist, researcher, and director of the TriLab at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Views shared on this podcast are mine or that of my guest and are not associated with the university. Original music for our series was composed and performed by Micaiah De Silva, artwork by Isabella Acra. The podcast is produced by me and is supported by the kind contributions of you, the public, and advertisers. Follow me on Twitter at Dr_AT758, that's Dr_AT758, or the Black Fathers Pulse podcast on Instagram and YouTube. Subscribe to the Black Fathers Pulse podcast wherever you do your podcast listening, and don't forget to share and leave us a positive review.